Welcome to the Blue Duck Fantasy Football Podcast.
Welcome to the Week 2 Sunday recap. Matt, are you ready to do this?
Always.
Okay. We're going to start off with some news today. Matt, what do you got for us?
Injury news today. Ben Rothlisberger got injured. It looked like some sort of elbow issue.
Non-contact.
Right. Scheduled for an MRI tomorrow, it said. But yeah, non-contact injury didn't look good. Steelers offense is going to take a little bit of a hit based off of that. Juju, the other wide receivers. Juju's still going to be high, but just a little bump down with Mason Rudolph.
Yeah, definitely going to drop down everybody on that team, except for maybe Vance McDonald, who looked really good with Rudolph today, but he's not going to jump much higher. Young quarterback's going to lean on the experienced tight end, and he's going to maybe go up a spot or two in the tight end rankings, but he's a tight end who's top 10 every week. What else you got for us?
The other quarterback that got injured, Drew Brees, jammed his wrist or thumb, maybe a dislocated thumb, kind of a guess, against Aaron Donald. It's going to hurt the Saints offense. It did today for sure. Michael Thomas is still going to be probably around top 5 for me, and Kamara is not going to really come down, though, based off of it. Like Ginn and Smith would take a hit if Brees misses time. Teddy Bridgewater will be roughly between quarterback 15 and 20 for me if he's actually going to be turning into a starter for a couple weeks.
Yeah, it's going to be matchup dependent on whether or not you can start Teddy Bridgewater, but the offense didn't look good today. Thomas got his catches. He had 10. Kamara didn't look great. Latavius Murray is also another guy whose value is gonna take a hit from not having Drew Brees in the offense. You can't do anything with Kamara and Thomas. You just got to keep playing them, just to expect less on them, and tend to avoid them in DFS. Anything else before we start the recap of the Sunday games?
No.
Okay, then let's start with the Cardinals at Baltimore. So the Cardinals, David Johnson left the game, but then came back. He only had 7 carries, though, compared to 1 for Edmonds, as the Cardinals basically abandoned the run today. Kirk, Fitz, and Bird are the main benefactors of the pass-happy Cardinals. I have Kirk and Fitz as top 40 wide receivers basically every week. What are your thoughts on the Cardinals going forward?
Yeah, well, DJ, that just seems kind of be a little bit of an anomaly this afternoon where he got 7 carries. He's going to get at least double that almost every week. Kirk and Fitz, yeah, about wide receiver 35-40 range for me as well. I thought Keyshawn Johnson would be the third wide receiver there, but not apparently. It seems like it's Bird, and the tight ends are non-existent. Kyler is going to be that quarterback 15-ish to 20 for me. So we'll move on to the home team in that match, Baltimore Ravens. Looked really good again on offense today, especially Lamar Jackson, not LaMarcus. It's proving to be the dual threat this week. He didn't have to rely on the run last week, but he is going to be a top 7 or 8, probably at least next week for me. Mark Ingram left the game briefly. Didn't do a whole lot. He got yards, but nothing substantial. Marquise Hollywood Brown, big game, a lot of targets. Mark Andrews also is looking like it, maybe going to leap into that top 10 tight end.
Yeah, I actually have Mark Andrews maybe leaping into the second tier of tight ends, the way he's been playing and the way that Lamar Jackson's been playing. We said last year he never completed 15 passes, but in his back-to-back games with over 15, and he's looked great. Mark Ingram, as you said, left and came back and didn't do much. Marquise Brown, 13 targets. The only cautionary thing I will say about Marquise Brown is that he is brittle. You saw last week he came up limping. He had the hip that was bothering him all week. He had injuries in college. The guy's 5'8", like 160 pounds. I'm not someone who's against smaller players, but he has a history of being brittle. So if you do have him, understand that you're probably going to miss 3 or 4 weeks with him not playing. But yeah, like I said, Andrews could be into the top 6 tight ends, especially with Hunter Henry injured. He might be that number 6 guy. Moving on, Chargers at Detroit, and the injuries are really hurting the Chargers offense at this point. They lost today to the Lions, a team that they shouldn't be losing to. They forced the ball to Keenan Allen all day. Mike Williams only had 3 catches, but he got a lot of yards. Justin Jackson continues to run better than Eckler, but Eckler continues to get more touches and continues to be must start for me. The Chargers are looking like a defense that I want to target week to week in DFS. play players that are playing against it. What are your thoughts on the Chargers here in this matchup?
Yeah, Rivers looked okay. Like I said, he kind of forced it to Keenan quite a bit there. Mike Williams was supposed to have a very limited role. I'm not sure on the target figure on him, but yeah, he had the 3 catches, but they weren't red zone catches, so that was what he was expected to be focused in on. We're not even just looking at the injuries to Henry and Williams. Are their left tackle there. Russell Okung has been out and seems to be hurting that offense quite a bit. For Detroit, Stafford was okay. Kenny Golladay had a really good day. Kerryon Johnson, again, limited carries. Concerning now. It seems like he's getting about maybe 50% of their rushes. I'm still going to keep running him out. You use the high draft capital on Golladay and Kerryon. Not buying Marvin Jones Jr. And I didn't see a lot of Hawk today either. That's kind of expected with rookie tight ends, but I was hoping to see a better performance from him.
Yeah, it's definitely concerning with Kerryon Johnson getting half the carries today. He's now looking more to be around the top 20 to 25 range than the top 10, 15 range, which we initially had him pegged at if they were going to use him properly. The Lions really haven't had much success at running back or tight end in the recent past, but hoping that changes this year. Kerryon is the passing downs back, though, so he is getting targets there. So in a PPR league, his value does go up a little bit. And PJ Hawk, you're going to get what you're going to get. Rookie tight end is not going to be very consistent. Move on to Indy at Tennessee. Matt, your thoughts on the Colts in this one?
They did not look that good overall, fantasy-wise. I mean, they won the game, so they were okay.
Upset that I picked on Wednesday.
That is true. I'll give you credit for that. Good pick. Brissett, no, not really somebody I'm that happy about. T.Y., 25-ish wide receiver. Mac is still going to hang around 20 to 25 running back for me. And not that interested in this Colts offense.
Yeah, I think the offense we saw today is more representative of the offense we're going to see from the Colts going forward. They didn't get to play that weak Chargers defense that we're talking about targeting in DFS leagues. But I agree with you on Hilton and Mac. They're both top 25 guys in that range rest of the season. Tennessee also showing who they are. Mariota, not great. Henry and Walker are the only players that should be hitting your starting lineup from this team. Matt, what are your thoughts on Corey Davis? Are you going to be dropping him, trading him, targeting him in a trade, benching, holding? What's your motto here on Corey Davis?
I'm definitely not dropping Corey Davis in any leagues that I own him. I'm going to hold him. I won't be starting him until he's actually starting to produce a little bit better. 0 catches last week, only 3 this week. Mariota, I think, is the issue there. I don't think it's a Corey Davis talent issue. But I don't even know if I'm willing to trade for him in that many leagues. I already have enough shares in him that I don't need to sync with that ship overall. Like Henry is always going to be a starter as a running back too. And Delaney Walker is going to hover around top 12 for me. Not a whole lot less to say about that Tennessee offense. There's no other wide receivers. A.J. Brown is okay, but Adam Humphries I haven't even heard.
Yeah, it's a disappointing thing is that the talent is there for Corey Davis and the talent is there for O.J. Brown. And if they were on a different team with a better quarterback who can get them the ball, we'd be talking about them being starters and this being one of the best wide receiver 10s in the league. But Mariota's the quarterback, and we're talking about them not even touching your starting lineup. Moving on to the Niners versus the Bengals. Biggest takeaway for me in the Niners was that this is a committee. Matt Breida had a nice game, but he had as many carries or as many touches as Mostert. Is that his name? Raheem Mostert?
Mostert, yeah.
Mostert. And I'm blanking on the third guy.
Jeff Wilson Jr.
Jeff Wilson Jr., yeah, brought up from the practice squad this week. All 3 backs were effective. Some had touchdowns, some had a lot of yards. This was kind of a blowout, but most of that production came early for the backs. Like they scored on a pass play, they scored on running plays early. So it's just frustrating because Breida is a good runner. And what's going to happen when Coleman comes back? Is this going to be a 4-headed running back by committee? It's a situation to avoid unless they have a nice matchup like they did today against the Bengals, where all of them can have some value. But other than that, I'm looking to avoid this. And the other big takeaway is Deebo Samuel is the number 1 wide receiver on this team. This is something that we predicted in the offseason. Pettis had 0 targets today, but he did throw a pass, and he completed for 16 yards. That was the stat line, 1 for 1 for 16 yards. Matt, your thoughts on the Niners?
Yeah, the running backs, I can't really add a lot to it. It does look like a big committee there. And once Tevin Coleman's back, that's just going to get even messier. Kittle didn't have a great day today, but expect to bounce back there. Jimmy Garoppolo looked all right. But the Bengals there, John Ross, another nice day for him with that 64-yard touchdown, I believe. Tyler Boyd.
Garbage time.
It was garbage time, but it counts in fantasy.
It does.
Tyler Boyd had a nice day. So Joe Mixon thought he was going to do a little more than he did. And then if he wasn't going to do it, we thought maybe Gio will do it. And Gio didn't do it either.
6 for 6. That's it.
Yeah, so this is an offense that you can maybe trust that Tyler Boyd is a player you can trust for the rest of the season. John Ross is somebody you can maybe trust for another week or two. But once A.J. Green's back, I don't think he's going to have the value there.
Yeah, I actually think that both Boyd and Ross will drop in value when A.J. Green comes back. They're both playing so well. I think that they'll probably keep A.J. Green out for as long as they can. Yes, they're not winning games, but this is not a team that's expected to compete either. The young players are playing well. They got to be thinking about the future of the team. It's a new coach. This isn't Marvin Lewis, who has ties to A.J. Green. So I can definitely see them holding out A.J. Green till possibly week 6. Again, I don't know what his injury is or how long he's going to be out from it. But, yeah, as for who you should start, make sure you join us on YouTube Sunday mornings, an hour before kickoff. You get all your fantasy football questions answered by myself or Matt if you want to get Matt to answer them. Anyways, moving on to the Jaguars versus the Texans. This was a low-scoring affair. Matt, what were your thoughts on the Jaguars in this one?
Yeah, they didn't do a whole lot on offense there. DJ Shark looked okay. Looks like he might be taking over the number 1 wide receiver in Jacksonville.
Goodbye, Dede.
Yeah, Leonard Fournette didn't have a great rushing average, but did catch some passes there, so it looks like he's gaining a little bit of PPR value. But yeah, overall with the Jaguars, it's not really aside from Fournette and as a flex, maybe DJ, I wouldn't start anybody else off this offense.
Yeah, DJ Chark, definitely somebody you're going to want to be looking at on the waiver wire. I picked him up in our Yahoo League last week. So it's definitely somebody to target. Is he a starter? No. He's pushing top 40 value, though, at this point as a number 1 wide receiver on this team. And Minshew played well again today. He wasn't bad. He didn't have a great fantasy day, but he was good as a quarterback. So he's definitely somebody you can flex in a 3 wide receiver start league. Possibly flex in a 2 wide receiver start league in a PPR league because he did have the 7 catches today. Was it 7 catches on 9 targets? I believe it was. But moving on to Houston, not the best day for the big star there, DeAndre Hopkins. He was tied up by Jalen Ramsey. And Deshaun Watson is going to get hurt. Sell him now. This is 8 straight games where he's got 4+ sacks, and he's taking big hits. If you have Deshaun Watson on your roster, sell him now. Get yourself another quarterback. You're going to lose him at some point. Anyways, might as well get something for him. Bigger story as well, Carlos Hyde, 20 carries to Duke's 6. Matt, what are your thoughts on Carlos Hyde going forward?
It's a tough one to read because Duke was kind of led the backfield last week. So I don't know if this was just game script. They thought Hyde would be the more effective back here, but Duke had a decent yards per carry as well, but it was kind of misled with the
one big run.
He had a 19-yard run or something. But Hyde, I'm not going to. I'm still not going to start him. I don't think next week until I see exactly where this is going. But he's definitely, if he's on, waivers, then for sure grab him. But I think he's probably owned in most leagues. I don't know the ownership.
Would you put a waiver request in for him, or would you look to just add him off after the waivers have run?
Yeah, after waivers.
Okay, so just an ad, not a waiver ad.
D-Hop's going to be fine.
Yeah, there's no worry there.
Him. Fuller, Stills are. I'm okay with those guys too.
Yeah, tough situation with that Duke and Hyde. But the only way you're going to be starting Carlos Hyde is if he ends up in the C pool on the Sunday Showdown, which you can watch every Sunday, 1 hour before game day on our YouTube channel. There'll be a link below here. Moving on, Minnesota Green Bay. Kirk Cousins, not looking great out there. He's making bad decisions and just throwing up poor balls. Like he's not very accurate right now, and he's not somebody that you should be starting going forward. He was a player that we liked before the season. We've given him 2 weeks to show what he can do, to show that last year was a little bit of a fluke where he didn't play as well as he should have. But I'm not starting him in any leagues that I have him in going forward. and this is going to hurt Diggs and Thielen's value. But Cook's value should be increased based on this. Matt, your thoughts on the Vikings?
Yeah, Cook looked really good again today. And like we said before the year, I never had an issue with Cook's talent. It's his injuries, and he probably will still get injured. So keep holding on to Madison. Diggs had 7 targets and 1 catch.
For a touchdown.
Yeah, for a touchdown. And
a stupid penalty.
And a dumb penalty after. But luckily that doesn't hurt you in fantasy. Thielen didn't do much, and it's all reflected back to Cousins, like you said. The wide receivers are going to take a hit with Cousins playing poorly. Packers started off like they were shot out of a cannon. 21 quick points. They looked like they were supposed to put up about 35, 42 points. Unfortunately, they kind of shut it down after that. Aaron Jones had a really nice day, better than we thought he was going to do against that Vikings offense. Defense, sorry.
Yeah, a lot of volume for him today, which is nice to see.
Yeah, Rodgers kind of put up the numbers we kind of thought he would. We talked about that last Wednesday. And Devontae Adams had his way a little bit with getting over 100 yards. But Green Bay's looking for that second wide receiver still.
Speaking of the second wide receiver, neither Geronimo Allison or Marquez Valdez-Scantling are players that I am looking to start or even flex at the moment. Once it gets into the bye weeks, I'd be okay with flexing one of them. But as of right now, I am not interested in putting in either of them in my starting lineups. These are not players I'm dropping by any means. So if you have them on your roster, just keep them on your bench. They're going to have some value if there's an injury to Devontae Adams or during the bye weeks. And that's all I got on the Packers. So we'll move on to the Cowboys and the Washington football team. Dak Prescott, another big game. And I was thinking, well, you should probably sell high on him. And then I checked the schedule, and he's playing Miami next week. So there's no rush on selling high because he's going to have another good week in week 3. Zeke's back. No surprise. A little bit of a surprise is Gallup leading the team in targets. He's still not somebody that I'm going to start. But similar to MVS and Geronimo, once we get to the bye weeks, he'll be somebody that I'll be happy to flex. And we can't ignore former announcer turned football player Jason Witten. Back-to-back games with a touchdown. He's a solid spot start at Miami next week if you need a tight end. Mm-hmm. But outside of that, he's not somebody you want to start every week. But next week, decent spot start. Matt, Cowboys?
Yeah, surprised that Cooper didn't see a little bit more targets this game. But, the offense is going to run through Zeke most weeks. Like you said, they're playing Miami next week. We know the drill with Miami right now. We're starting everybody against them, and including forgotten receiver, Devin Smith, apparently.
Forgotten receiver. Never heard of receiver. Would you start Tony Pollard in a deeper league?
No, I don't think so.
Not
Zeke is going to
Miami?
be too much. Yeah.
You don't think they start blowing him out and then they just put Pollard in to clean it up?
No, we learned teams don't care about running up the score today. Tom Brady threw a touchdown pass with 2 minutes left, and they're up 37-0. I know that's Belichick, but that's what teams are apparently doing nowadays. Mahomes was in until the end of the game as well.
Yeah, that was a close one. They're only 18.
Yeah, with 2 minutes left.
Yeah, I get it, but the coaches tend to leave their starters in. Why don't you tell me about Washington?
Yeah, I'm still not trusting any of these wide receivers here. Jordan Reed looked like he might have played this week, and then he got ruled out, I think, on Friday. But he's going to be closer to getting back, maybe even as early as this week. That might be somebody to target in for tight ends if you need one. He may have been dropped just because of the injury there, and people don't roster 2 tight ends. Because that's going to be the only guy that I'm going to target. AP didn't have much of a day. That offensive line is struggling to run block.
Big time.
So it wasn't a Darius Geis issue. It doesn't look like it. It looks like it's just the Washington running scheme. But AP's still going to have value because Geis is out for another 7 weeks at minimum.
Yeah, I actually think the best running back to target on this team is Chris Thompson. I don't think this is a very good football team. They can't run the ball, but Chris Thompson in a PPR league especially will be getting a lot of touches out of the backfield, a lot of passes that he'll be catching. Terry McLaurin had a decent game again. I think he had 62 yards on 5 catches and a touchdown. Don't quote me on that, though. Going off memory. But the Skins play the Chicago Bears next week, so you can comfortably sit basically everyone off of this team. Moving on to Seattle versus Pittsburgh. We talked about the injury to Ben. We'll start off with the Seahawks here. Matt, your thoughts on the Seahawks?
Russ had a pretty good day there. 3 touchdowns, I believe, over it was like 320
It was exactly
yards.
300 yards.
300 yards, yeah, 300 yards. Okay. So he had a pretty good day there. Carson had a okay day numbers wise, but fumbled twice, so he kind of got taken off of the carries there. And so Penny saw a little bit more action than normal.
Yeah, he lost 2 fumbles too, not just fumbled twice,
Right.
lost both.
Yeah, and Will Dissly got 2 touchdowns, which will probably be his only 2 touchdowns of the year. So don't jump on that.
Bold prediction here.
No. And Metcalf had a nice touchdown grab there, but still Tyler Lockett not being a factor in the red zone area.
Tyler Lockett did have a lot of catches, though. I believe it was 10. Under 100 yards, though.
79 to be
yeah.
exact.
Wow, not even close to 100. Yeah, I don't really feel like this is how Seattle's going to play. I think because Carson lost the fumbles, they turned more to Russell Wilson in this one, and as well Rashad Penny. But I think in most weeks you're going to see them run the ball more. So don't expect games like this from Wilson too often. Sell high on Lockett's 10 reception game in a PPR league. We both don't like Lockett this year. Metcalf in a standard league is an okay flex if you're starting 3 wide receivers because he has that potential for that 3-catch, 65-yard and touchdown every week. But Pittsburgh, the news, Roethlisberger injured. Rudolph is a starter that should only be added in 2 quarterback leagues. Unless, of course, you have Brees and Ben and they're both out and the waiver wire is picked clean with quarterbacks, then you're forced to get them. But I won't be starting in any leagues. Moncrief was benched in this one, so there's a boost to Washington and Deontay Johnson going forward. But then you have to step him down because they're going to have Rudolph playing. If Ben is back, move him back up. And the big game from Vance McDonald, who is he's a top 10 tight end every week. He's not going to get much higher than that. If you drafted him and waited on a tight end, feel free to start him.
Yeah, McDonald appears to be the safety net for Mason Rudolph. It looks like Ben's going to be out for a while just based off of what we saw. Yeah, Juju, like I said, it's going to come down a little bit for me. Connor probably a little bit, but Washington and Johnson, yeah, they're going to have a little bit more opportunity with Moncrief being sat and just not having 2 very good games so far.
Yeah, and as much as this changes the value for all these players, it doesn't change whether or not you're starting or sitting them. You're still going to sit Washington. You're still going to sit Deontay Johnson, and you're still going to start Juju and Connor in advance.
Of course.
Buffalo and the New York Giants. Buffalo now 2-0 at MetLife this year after beating the Giants and the Jets. Singletary leaving the game in the 4th quarter in this one with an injury. He ran well, but Gore outcarried him 19-6. That wasn't really affected much by the injury. And John Brown continues to show it. He had, I believe, 7 catches today, under 100 yards, but is still the number 1 receiver on this team and is a borderline start, a borderline top 25, top 30 guy every week for me, depending on the matchup. But in most cases, he's someone that I'm fine starting. Matt, your thoughts on the Bills?
Yeah, it's tough to get a read fully on that running back situation because they are feeding it to Gore. He's still there. It looks like their bell cow back, even though Singletary seems to be the more talented of the 2. But yeah, we'll have to check on that hamstring injury later on this week to see what his status is. Yeah, John Brown is not really somebody I still want to start. I mean, it need be kind of a flex in a 3 wide receiver situation for me. Josh Allen is going to have around QB 20-ish for me. He's got the running ability, and that's what makes him attractive. New York Giants. Saquon Barkley's good. That's about it.
Thank you for that tip. Someone who should have been good and wasn't. I'm talking to you, Evan Ingram. What a terrible game. It wasn't terrible, but for what you should have done with every single wide receiver on the roster out, it should have been a 13-target day for you, maybe 10 catches, over 100 yards, at least 1 touchdown, but no, not even close. All my DFS lineups, garbage because of you. Disappointing. I expect an apology in the comments. Moving on, New England, Miami. What are your thoughts on the Patriots receivers now that Antonio Brown is there and has caught a touchdown?
They targeted him a whole bunch at the beginning of the game. He kind of slowed down after that, and I'm not sure what that was related to. Maybe they just thought they'd let Miami see that they're going to throw to him all the time and split it up. But it seemed like kind of a mess, honestly. They're targeting everybody, which is okay in real life. You're spreading the ball around to all your receivers. But for fantasy,
unpredictable offense, right?
yeah, it's tough for fantasy. I mean, obviously, you're still going to keep starting Antonio Brown as long as he's allowed to play. Edelman in PPR for sure. Josh Gordon had 2 targets, or 2 catches anyway. 5 targets, I think. Yeah, it's going to be hard to start anybody outside of Brown and Edelman, honestly. And, well, Michelle and White are fine, but...
Yeah, I'm actually worried about James White. Now that you have the 3 wide receivers there, that's less targets for James White. That's less value for James White. Sony Michel had the 20-plus carries today. Hopefully you didn't panic on him after week 1. Trust the talent. But as far as these wide receivers, when Antonio Brown was on Oakland, he had top 10 value to me. Edelman had good value, and Josh Gordon had good value. Now that they're on the same team, they're all taking a drop in value. There's no way Antonio Brown is still top 10. He's maybe top 15. Everybody else is dropping. Gordon, is, as you said, is not a player that you're going to want to start. If I have Josh Gordon and John Brown, you're going into the lineup ahead of Josh Gordon for me.
Kind of insulting for Josh Gordon. But the talent is not close.
It's not a talent discrepancy.
No.
It's a fantasy production, and I'll take the number 1 guy in Buffalo over the number 3 guy in New England in that case. But yeah, I am worried about James White, and he's someone I have in a dynasty league, and I'm going to be looking to sell him most likely in that league if I can get some type of return for him, because I don't think there's going to be enough footballs to go around. Now let's get on to what we want to talk about and what you've been waiting for, the Miami Dolphins.
Woohoo!
And we'll just skip right through them. You shouldn't be starting any Dolphins.
We'll just mention that this is another defense that we're going to target in DFS, and leave it at that.
And you should be targeting the defense that's playing them as well in DFS, as the Patriots had close to 100 points today, or maybe it was 40.
Yeah.
Let's move on to late games. At late game that started off with the Raiders leading the Chiefs, and then the Chiefs simply decided they were going to win. Matt, your thoughts on KC?
They look unstoppable, honestly. Like, every single ball that Mahomes threw for a touchdown was probably at least 30 yards plus. I don't know the exact yardage, but it had to have been close to that anyway. And it looks like they were just beating the Raiders secondary. Raiders secondary isn't great by any means, but they did it to Jacksonville last week too, all without Tyreek Hill. Like, this is a scary offense. Pat Mahomes, I mean, we don't need to sell him up, but Mecole Hardman had a nice touchdown, and Demarcus Robinson looked really good today. I mean, I wouldn't expect that all the time, but because that could easily be Hardman next week. But it is somebody that we were going to talk about a little bit on waivers anyway.
Yeah, the thing too about Mecole Hardman is he had a touchdown called back on a holding call, so he would have had a bigger day too if it wasn't for Shady McCoy holding somebody. Well, he kind of had to hold for the play to go off, but either way, it is scary. You need to get a piece of this offense. Even if you're not going to start Demarcus Robinson every week, you should kind of go after him. The backfield is what's a little bit concerning to me. You saw a split. Williams has the PPR upside, but McCoy got 13 carries to Williams' 10. Neither ran really well, but I think the Raiders just played this wrong. They basically didn't play anybody deep over the top and gave a lot of one-on-one matchups on deep balls and got burnt for 4 touchdowns on deep balls. So if teams look to play with safeties over the top, it'll open up the running game. So I'm not worried about the running backs on this team. I think both are still pretty good going forward and are flexible.
Yeah, and the other thing is to mention, just don't panic on Sammy Watkins. He didn't get a touchdown today, but he's going to be fine. The more these other receivers get these targets, the more teams will not be queuing on Sammy.
He actually had 13 targets today based on the box score.
Yeah.
Even though it didn't look like he saw any targets, but it said 13.
Okay, and he got like 50 yards?
Yeah.
Don't panic. He'll be better.
Yeah. Sammy Watkins will be fine. As for the Raiders, I look at the team and I see 3 guys that you can start every week. Darren Waller is a borderline tight end start. Tyrell Williams is a top 25 wide receiver for me. And Josh Jacobs is probably a top 15 running back at this point. Matt, your thoughts on the Raiders?
Yeah, I'm pretty much on board with you with all 3 of those guys there. And Derek Carr is still somebody I'm not looking at in a single quarterback format. But yeah, Waller's going to be hitting that top 15 mark. He was right around there for me this week. I'm going to move up Tyrell Williams. I had him at 28 this week. I'll probably move him into the top 25. Not a huge jump, but starter material now. And Josh Jacobs, I'm not going to move. I had him between 15 and 20. That's likely where he'll be sitting.
Yeah, disappointing game for Jalen Richard, who I believe had 5 yards. He did have 2 catches, but outside of a PPR league where that gives you 2.5 points, it's still not good. Disappointing when you expected them to trail and expected them to be passing to the running back. And he was out there. He actually had a fumble that he ended up recovering. But anyways, we'll move on to a crazy finish over, is it in Denver? Chicago, Denver, or was it in Chicago?
It was in Denver.
It was in Denver, so I got it written down wrong here. So why don't you tell us about the Bears?
In this game, there wasn't a lot of offense, which we expected. Montgomery had the touchdown there towards the end of the game there in the fourth quarter. Allen Robinson, guy up here on the back, had, 2 or 3 catches? It wasn't a lot.
He had one important one at the end of the game, though.
Yes, he did. But, yeah, we didn't expect a lot from this game offensively. The defenses look good. That's it for Chicago.
Yeah, this was a bad matchup for both teams. Montgomery got the carries today, as you mentioned. That's going to continue going forward, and he's a top 25 running back easily this season going forward. Tariq Cohen is still going to be fine in PPR. This just was kind of a tough matchup against the Broncos, and it was a tough matchup for the Broncos against the Bears. And Allen Robinson is the only pass catcher that I want on this offense. Trey Burton, you are taking a back seat. I know you're maybe not 100% healthy, but you're no longer in the top 15 at tight end for me. Moving on to Denver. Told you to sit Sutton. Hopefully you listened. I don't think he had that good of a game. But Emmanuel Sanders had a surprisingly good game. He capped it off late with that touchdown, but he had 91 yards before that touchdown. So he was over 100 yards, I believe, with the score and a 2-point conversion that should have won the game. Bad matchups for both teams in this one. Sanders and Sutton will be starts next week. And I had Philip Lindsay real low this morning when we were talking about it, and I was 100% correct on that.
Yeah, not a whole lot to add there. I thought Sutton would be a little bit better, and I didn't see the big game from Sanders coming. That just seems to be who seems to be getting the looks today. Sutton will be fine next week. Lindsay will be okay. Freeman is going to be borderline flex. Yeah. And Sanders is going to move up to maybe borderline flex 2-ish. A little bit lower than that probably, actually, now that I say that. But and Fant didn't look like he was anything special.
No. Question for you. Rest of the season, who would you rather have, Emmanuel Sanders, Cortland Sutton?
Cortland Sutton.
Okay.
Pretty easily.
Obviously agree with him, Cortland Sutton. New Orleans, Rams, Brees is out. Bridgewater's not Brees. Michael Thomas is still PPR beast. Kamara's going to drop, but he's still a start. Anything to add on the Saints?
No, just kind of monitor the Brees situation. Obviously, that affects everybody around him. Rams, Gurley seems to be getting a lot more carries than we thought he would, especially with the game getting more out of hand at the end there. We thought a lot more Malcolm Brown would be out there. Malcolm Brown, we thought we'd use a lot more than we did see him at the end of the game, but he is definitely the number 2 back, like we talked about countless times already. Darrell Henderson didn't even see the field that we noticed. Malcolm Brown should be your back to own there outside of Gurley. The Rams receivers, they're all going to have their weeks. This week was Cooper Kupp. Cooks had a touchdown, though, too, and one big catch. Robert Woods was non-existent, though.
Yeah, and that's going to happen with the Rams receivers. It is surprising, as you mentioned, to see Gurley getting so many carries late in the game. It was a 3-score game, and they're running out the clock with Gurley. It could be a good sign that Gurley's healthy, but at the same time, I still want Malcolm Brown. If you have Gurley, you have to have Malcolm Brown. I have Malcolm Brown in a lot of leagues because I do not trust Gurley's knee. And at some point, it's going to end up being Malcolm Brown and possibly some Darrell Henderson coming in when Gurley gets hurt. Yeah,
just with Gurley there, it's an arthritic knee. It's not like it was an ACL or something that could possibly happen. You know this is an issue, that arthritis doesn't go away. So this is something that the Rams are going to be wanting to protect for him. That's why I just want to add that in.
It's only going to get worse for his knee. The arthritis is just going to get worse. It's not going to get better. And that's going to wrap it up for the Sunday recap. So let's talk some early waivers. You have the number 1 spot on the waiver wire. You have needs at every single position. Who are you putting in the waiver bid for? Who is your number 1 pick off the waiver wire? Matt, you're on the spot. Go for it.
My number one pick this week would be, I've got it narrowed down to 3 guys here. And it's going to be Deebo Samuel over DJ Shark.
And who's the third guy?
DeMarcus Robinson out of Kansas City.
So DeMarcus Robinson is your third guy.
Yeah.
Okay. It's really close for me between Deebo Samuel and Chark, because I'm thinking rest of the season here. I don't need anybody to start next week. I don't really want to run DeMarcus Robinson out there next week. Sure, he could have a good game, or he could do nothing, and both Shady McCoy and Damon Williams could have a huge game because they decide to play a lot of deep safeties and just leave a lot of room for them to run. So I'm not looking at grabbing these guys to start them right away. I'm thinking rest of the season. And Chark and Deebo, I'm going to go with Chark number 1, Deebo number 2, just because there's something going on in San Francisco. They talked about Dante Pettis being the number 1 guy on the depth chart. 3% of snaps in week 1. No targets today and a pass thrown. I think they're playing some type of mind game with the guy. There's something with that coaching staff. They talk about who the lead running back is, and they just go to a pure committee. So as much as Deebo was good this week, maybe they just decide, you know what, let's just put Pettis in for every single play next week and go from there and try to motivate the guys or whatever the coach is trying to do there. So Chark for me, because I think he's the number 1 there. Minshew has a good rapport with him. Especially, I like the fact he got a lot of catches this week. Matt?
Yeah, just part of the reason I like Deebo more than Shark is I like the guy throwing the ball a lot more than in San Francisco. And San Fran has quick Kittle to attract some attention away. DJ Shark, as he's going to become more the lead guy there, he's going to become the more focal point for the defense. I mean, D.D. Westbrook doesn't really scare anybody there. And with DeMarcus Robinson, like we talked about during the KC recap, I don't trust that just because I think Mecole Hardman could be that guy that does what he did today next week. That's the reasoning for my rankings on those 3 guys.
All right. Anything else to add?
Nope. Just thanks for watching and or listening. Hopefully both.
That's it.